Okay, I know probably half of this word is cut off at the top. I know that. And you can probably guess what the rest of it is, but I want to work toward it. So I think that we all have different things that are important to us, different levels of importance. What is important to me may not be important to you. I'm going to give you some examples that have just happened to me in the last 10 minutes. So, what was important to my cat in the last 10 minutes was being fed. Okay, I fed the cat so I could do this devotional. What was important to the dog was getting to the cat food that I left out and didn't put away after I fed the cat, as she almost got it. That was important to her. What is important to my daughter is to go to a meeting for basketball, which is where she's at right now. But she didn't do the household chores before she left, which, by the way, is important to me. Now, the top of this word, it's agenda. And in fact, if you go even further up, which I could not get it to fit, which was part of what I wanted, it says God's agenda. And then I thought, wait a minute, this is what happens. We never get to God's agenda. We get to maybe half of the word and go, what? What are you trying to say to us? We can't decipher what this word is. God, we can't decipher what it is you want from us because we are too busy with what is important for us. What was important for me was getting this devotional done, and I couldn't see past the fact that it has taken me a very long time to try to figure out how to put God's agenda above my head here on this recording. But it probably is more effective when you can't see the word God's and half of the word of agenda, because that's what we do. We are so busy running that we do not see God's agenda and the level of importance in the scheme of things for what we are doing for God. And I think that I have had a really major issue with agenda stuff recently. I have had a conflict with somebody in my neighborhood. And it's been a real struggle for me. I don't like conflict. I don't like the feeling of it getting yucky within me. And to add to it, it is conflict that is pretty aggressive on the other side. I then have to figure out my agenda, my neighbor's agenda, and then God's agenda. Which one is most important? Because I got to tell you, I'm thinking my agenda is pretty important here, and my neighbor is thinking that his agenda is pretty important to him. And in the meantime, we've cut off out of the picture God's agenda. What if I share the same agenda as God and exercise grace with my neighbor? Don't you think that's God's agenda? For all of us to exercise grace, for all of us to show the love that God shows to us, for us to show the grace that God has given us, to pay it forward. Remember that phrase used to be around a lot, paying it forward. How about if we pay forward grace rather than my agenda, my neighbor's agenda? How about God's agenda? So I'm going to work extra hard on showing grace with my neighbor. And you notice I didn't say that my neighbor has to show grace to me, because my neighbor does not have to do diddly squat for me to show God's grace to my neighbor. I can show grace to my neighbor without my neighbor showing me any favor. Isn't that God's agenda? For all of us to show God's love and God's grace. So I'm going to work really hard on that this week. Where is it that you can make God's agenda available and knowing God's agenda in your life this week rather than cutting it off right at the top and not even being able to see the message of God's agenda? Let's all work toward God's agenda in our life this week. Have a blessed week, and let's see what God has for us. Bye, guys.